Welcome to the Tailoring Talk Show with me, your host, Roberto Revilla. I'm a bespoke tailor, menswear designer, and owner of Roberto Revilla London Suit and Shirt Makers. It's the podcast where you drop in for the threads, but often leave with something quite unexpected. You and I will meet self-starters and creators to learn about their journeys, the highs and lows, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Please support the show by subscribing if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Or indeed, if you're watching on YouTube, it helps so much if you take a few seconds to rate and review my show. My guest today is an author, speaker, and master in professional communication. He's also the author of the book Collabradabra, which focuses on the magic of collaborative conversations, highlighting the 6 moments that matter to maximize collaborative outcomes, one conversation at a time. Tailoring Talkers, please join me in welcoming Peter Anthony to the Tailoring Talk Show. Peter, how are you?
G'day, Roberto. I'm well. It's morning in Sydney, Australia, and I've just been for a swim in the ocean, which is the best way to start the day. So if my hair's looking a little bouffant, it's probably full of salt. That's why. But it's great to be here.
By contrast, I was up at 5 this morning, but I've now done a 15-hour day, so you look bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I look like I'm ready for my grave. But thank you so much. So this is the first episode I've recorded with someone from down under. The closest I got before was New Zealand, but he was actually on a boat in Paris, funny enough. He was living on a boat.
Wow.
So I'm glad that you're not only from Australia, but you're actually in Australia at the moment as well. So it's an exclusive.
Yes, I'm here in. If anyone knows Australia, I live in Sydney on what we call the Northern Beaches in Manly, which is a very popular place to visit. So it's a gorgeous part of the world.
And the other first thing as well, but I can't remember what it was, but it will probably come back to me. But we had a good little pre-show talk. We got some tailoring talk in, so I'm going to try and edit this in such a way that makes it into the episode and ticks that box. But yeah, no, we had a great conversation. I'm sorry I'm not all dressed up as I normally would be. But you can Google me and you'll see what I normally look like. So Peter, the interesting thing, I really want to get into your book and the whole concept of I pronounced it right? Collabradabra.
Collabradabra. It's like abracadabra. That's where I got the idea from, because I was working in this space developing ideas on collaboration. I thought there's magic when this happens properly. And it's literally magic. And I thought collaboration, collabradabra, abracadabra, collaboration, collabradabra. So that just became the core of the idea, if you like, because that word encapsulates what I'm all about and what I've learned on this journey of 30 or so years in business.
You already, in the short time that I've now known you, I'm detecting your sense of humor, and having read a little bit of your background and biography, I've got a sense that maybe your uncle was a big influence in that on you, because you describe yourself as a young child as being quite an introvert, but it was your uncle that I guess I would hope brought you out of your shell and kind of had an influence on you quite early on.
Yes, he did. In fact, I was when I was a kid, I'm thinking now I'm like 5 or 6 or 7 years old. My favourite thing to do on my walk back home from school was to stop by the small local library and pick up a couple of books and come home and just get lost in them. I loved adventure stories. I loved mystery stories. And that was my main pastime. I still read now, not as much as I did then. And my mother comes from a large Irish Catholic family, and her family was large. And I had many uncles and aunties, and one of them was my Uncle Harry, who himself had 8 children. And my mother would regularly invite my Uncle Harry over for lunch on a Sunday. She cook a big baked lunch. She'd like very proud of like baking turkeys and so forth. And I always be in my room reading. This was on a Sunday, right? Like the beautiful sunshine, beaches outside. I'd be inside reading. And she'd be constantly provoking me and challenging me to get out and talk to my family. That was my uncle. And they had a very close relationship. They were best friends as well as brothers and sisters. And I kept saying, no, 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 no. She eventually prized me out of my room. And she said, look, all you've got to do is just ask Harry a question, because Harry is an awesome individual who is a lumberjack, or he was a lumberjack. He's retired now. And he had stories of being out in the Australian bush as a lumberjack and cutting down trees and all the adventures that involved. And all I did, at my mother's request, was to ask Harry questions about being a lumberjack. Not that I'm a lumberjack, but his stories were hilarious. They were engaging. They were hilarious. I just got spellbound, and I thought, you know what? I can hear and get better stories from people than I can from books. I'm not knocking books at all for those people that like books, but what I find is that people have unique stories, and if you can, this is what I learned then, and if I can ask questions and get engaged in that, it really is an awesome way to live. So even as an introvert, I liked that engagement. I wasn't doing all the talking; they were doing the talking. I was doing the listening and learning. So that began me. I didn't realize it then, Roberto, way back then. I didn't realize it then, but that began me on the journey that I'm still on now. And my mother asked me, she says, Peter, what do you do again? And I said, Mum, I teach people to talk to each other. And she said, and they pay you for that? I go, yeah. And she laughs. She thinks it's hilarious because for her, it's just so natural. It's just it's not, but for many people like me who often find that challenging, particularly when the stakes are high. And I'm sure you've had these situations, Roberto, where it's a high stakes conversation. Like a lot relies on this conversation. It could be a relationship, it could be a friendship, it could be a business opportunity, it could be any or all of the above. And somehow, when the stakes get high and you feel a bit stressed or a bit anxious, like I often do and did, your skills just seem to desert you. You just can't seem to speak. You lose your ability to understand anything or put a sentence together. So it's really crucial, and it became a career for me. It became a career, and I'm now, if you like, a conversation and collaboration evangelist. That's how I just. And you're right about the sense of humour. Australians are typically a little sarcastic. We don't take things overwhelmingly seriously, and we feel very close to our brothers in the UK. I mentioned to you before the podcast, I was in the UK in London working in June of last year, and King Charles is our king too. We are not a republic. Technically, we still report to the UK, and it's a very welcome and warm relationship between British and Australians. We feel
absolutely
we give each other a little bit of grief, but it's a nice relationship to have.
Yeah, around rugby, the Ashes, all that kind of stuff. But outside of that, we love you very much.
Yeah, there's a kindred spirit there, because after all, many Australians are descendants of English settlers of like 200 or 300 years ago. So there's a very strong genetic line as well, as that friendly rivalry. Nothing's better than watching a rugby match or a test cricket match between the two countries. It's awesome because it's got all that flavour to it too. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
So then you go to university and you come out and you go you end up at IBM.
Yes.
I kind of know a little bit about IBM culturally because I have a few partners who clients who are or were partners at IBM, and they're on that sort of whole consultancy merry-go-round. So IBM, Deloitte, PwC, all that stuff. And you use the word sales school, which kind of actually both warmed my heart and brought some PTSD up for me because I worked for an American tailoring company, and part of their success was their sales school system. Very, very, it's a very US thing, I think. And
Yeah,
you're sort of drilled in the way to sell. And you're given a very, it's like the Haynes manual of selling for that business. And
yeah.
woe betide anyone that deviates from it. And God knows I used to get told off all the time for going off script. But I just didn't get it. I just didn't get that I was in a business where tailoring, you're dealing with individuals. And so, I've got hundreds of customers, but I never look after any two of them in the same way. Every single one is tailoring, right? I didn't get how you could be so prescriptive trying to uh, put everybody in the same box. It's just impossible. We are all different personality wise and so on, and our needs are different, our wants are different. And I wonder if you kind of share some of that sentiment, and if that's what, because you're obviously a very thoughtful individual as well. But I think there's also a degree of empathy with you. And I wonder if that's what set you on this sort of path of, well, hang on a second, traditional selling doesn't work a lot of the time. There's got to be another way.
Yeah, if I can disagree with you, Roberto, I'd say it doesn't work any of the time. In fact, what I'd suggest is traditional selling is the opposite of what works. It doesn't work any of the time. And it's interesting you raise IBM because I did go to university. I did a business and economics degree. My mother wanted me to be a lawyer, so I did a law degree at the same time. That you can do both degrees concurrently because I was still a voracious reader, so I was a good studier. I got good marks, got to uni. They had this thing at the end of university here called Careers Week, where employers or potential employers come on campus and interview potential employees. They said, look, you can see 20 employers. I was talking to stockbrokers and business consultants, economists, thinking of a role like that because I was very interested in marketing. And I got to like number 18 or 19 on the list, and I thought I'll add IBM. I mean, there's no way I'd work there, but I'll just add them for good interview experience.
Yeah.
I'm the sort of guy that said, if I'm given 20, I'll see 20. So I added IBM to the list, thinking there's no way that this is going to go forward, but I'm going to meet these guys, hugely successful computing and consulting business. So I went along to the interview there on campus. They liked what I was saying. They said, come for a second interview. I joined IBM for two reasons initially. One was they were paying 3 times what anyone else was offering, 3 times with a car, right, and a year of sales school. So I thought, okay, I'll join IBM. I'll take the year of sales school. I'll learn to sell. That will help round me out to understand what this selling thing is all about. And you were given a senior mentor in the business as someone that worked with you, that helped you along the way. So you'd have a couple of weeks of, say, working with your mentor, the senior salesperson. I got an awesome one called Rod, who was a particularly good mentor. And then I went the second half of the month, I was in sales school. So I got a year of hardcore selling. The bizarre thing, though, Roberto, was that when I first joined and I met with Rod, I'd go out on sales calls with him, and we would sell together. And what I found was the more I went to sales school, the less I sold. And I was rebellious. I was in sales school, myself and still a great friend of mine, Alan, who we became like kindred spirits because we both loved Catch-22, the book. We used to quote it to each other. And we were both rebellious, and we almost got fired because of how rebellious we were in sales school, how we would challenge what we were told. And I found the more I followed the prescriptive approach, the less I sold. So, and the unfortunate thing for IBM was that both Alan and I became some of the most successful salespeople in the business then, even though we were doing the opposite of what we were being taught. And then IBM, it's changed a lot now. Then it was very prescriptive.
Yeah.
In terms of suits, like if you think of tailoring, it was we all had blue pinstripes, like French navy or navy blue pinstripe suits, white shirts, red ties, and black lace-up shoes. We all were dressed exactly the same, right? We even looked the same. We talked the same. It was like a McDonald's, if you like. And that got me thinking, wow, this is really curious. I had stumbled across collaboration at that stage, but I just found, as you say, the more I cared about and understood what our clients and customers were looking for, and the more of a relationship I had with them, and Rod was doing the same, my mentor was doing the same. He wasn't doing the sales school stuff. He was a genuinely smart, collaborative human being. And that was, I guess, the second step towards where I am now, thinking this selling doesn't work. In fact, I began realizing whatever I got taught in sales school, if I did the opposite, would work. Like rather than like closing sales, I never closed anything. I was attempting to open up the relationship and being quite happy to walk away. And then IBM was the computer brand, so it was easy to walk away. Because you think, no, what you're looking for, we can't help you with. And the more I did that, the more effective I was. It was bizarre. It was a bit of a mind spin, if you like, Roberto.
But it's a mind spin. It's a mind spin for the customer as well.
Yeah.
But then that's where it's almost like you're breaking something in everyone's brain, but then all of a sudden, once they've had time for the dust to settle in whatever time period that is, whether it's seconds, minutes, or days, they think, hang on a second, anyone else would have tried to close me on that. This guy didn't.
Yeah. No, he didn't. He didn't. And it's really interesting. And what I've found is that if someone feels like you're selling to them, whether you're selling tailoring or computers or anything you like, right? Three really toxic things happen. One is you start losing trust because people don't trust what you're saying because they think it's coming from a sales perspective and your personal perspective or your business perspective. So trust gets diminished. The second toxic thing that happens is that they tend to distance themselves from you in terms of relationship.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to build a relationship with somebody that you're selling to. In fact, they'll get further away. And the other toxic thing that happens is that when there's a price involved with what you're recommending or potentially selling, they think if you're selling, their role is as a buyer. And one of the markers of a good buyer, if you talk to them, is that I'll put downward pressure on prices, because if I win as a buyer, it means I'm going to get the lowest price I possibly can. So if you'd like those things to happen, if you'd like a toxic, distant relationship where people are pushing down prices, go ahead and sell as hard as you can. Just sell as hard as you can and watch what happens. Nothing. You're actually pushing people away. Now, I knew this intuitively, primarily from my family and my mother and my uncle, but I was learning it in business practice and being a little bit of a maverick and being willing to walk away, almost suggesting to walk away. Say, look, Roberto, I'm not quite sure whether we can progress this because I'm not confident that what I'm recommending will work for you. The other thing that I like to think is that I've got a huge sales team because every one of my clients over 20 years is a salesperson for me. In fact, most of my clients, as I'm sure in the tailoring business, they come from people that recommend you.
Yeah.
So, and they are the best. And the same, my tailor in Singapore, Benny, he got recommended by a friend of mine. Benny's got almost zero advertising. In fact, he tries not to advertise because he's got too much business. He doesn't advertise. He doesn't need to because he's got such strong relationships that anyone that meets Benny loves him. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. Whatever you've learned about selling, think what's the opposite of that? Go ahead and do that, and you'll be successful.
Yeah. How does that affect? Marketing. So, for me personally, I've found particularly in the last, I mean, particularly last year, but even beyond that, if we just take that 18-month blip out of the equation, um, I've found, probably much like your friend Benny, that I've not had to spend money on outbound marketing. And the other thing as well is outbound marketing, I always say, is like a fishing net that, or a trawler, because all you're doing is you're trying to attract everybody when you don't actually want everybody. The people that
Uh,
I want are the people who are like my clients that I have already. I love working with them. Many of them are impactors. I love hanging out with them. So I want more people from the same network. So I built my business
yes,
mostly on referral. But I know there are people out there, and I know that there are listeners, and this is just from feedback and comments and some questions that I've had recently, who've really been struggling in the last 12 months to attract customers, to engage with them, and it's that initial beginning bit. So for me, whenever I meet a new customer, I'm doing a really bad job of explaining myself here. This is why I never record at this time of night. But I had to make an exception for you. So again, thank you so, so much. I take today as an example. I had a Zoom call booked with an existing customer, and he brought a friend of his onto the Zoom call to introduce me in person. And I'm seeing that person next Friday at the workroom. That's it.
great. Yeah, perfect.
Right?
Yeah,
Or a text message. Peter, hey Peter, I want you to meet so and so. I've copied him in.
yeah.
Peter's an amazing public speaker. He'd be great for your organization. Blah blah blah. I'll leave for you two to connect. So that happens a lot as well. There are a lot of people out there in my business and similar who don't enjoy that and are really scratching their heads over how they can sort of get to that sort of situation to then be able to start to collaborate with people and so on in the first place. So what advice do you have there?
What advice I'd have, Roberto, is that for everything, if what you are selling has been sold before, or if what you're offering has been sold before, there are other people just like the people that you've sold to that exist, right? If you've never sold it before, I'd give you different advice. But I'd suggest think about asking yourself two questions. The first question is, who am I ideal for? Whether I'm tailoring or whether I'm a Mercedes-Benz dealer or whatever I may be, who am I ideal for? And how do I make myself more ideal for them? And how do I find them? Because they want you as much as you want them. I mean, I wanted Benny as much as Benny wanted me. I actually wanted Benny probably more than he wanted me because he was very busy in Singapore. So have the, and I think if you think about the COVID experience, I looked at some research recently because I do a lot of like psychoanalytics in the coaching practice that I do, and what they found pre and post COVID is that. And this study was in 12 countries, including the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And they found people were more introverted, which is no surprise. They're more pessimistic about the future. And they're more polarized, are less likely to change their minds after COVID. So we're dealing, and this is affecting us all. I know I feel exactly the same way too. I think I'm not going to talk politically about COVID, but the experience of COVID has made us more introverted and more disconnected and less confident about the future. So if you're feeling that way post COVID and post that experience, that's normal. That's natural. That's a normal response to a stressor like that. What I'd encourage you to do is to think more positively and optimistically about the future, because the economy currently is very healthy and people are ready to do business, and they're ready to do business with you, whatever it is that you may do. So you think, okay, what am I bespoke at? Like, what is unique about what I'm offering? What is my particular value proposition? And who am I making that proposition to? And how do I make myself more ideal for them? And the best people to ask are your customers. Like, talk to people that you've worked with before that have been happy with what you've done, because you may not know, and I find this regularly, you may not know what it is that you're doing that makes you unique, that makes them recommend you. And just be quite comfortable asking the question. You say, hey, Roberto, I noticed that you recommended me to Bob. I'm just curious, what is it about your experience with me that particularly made you think about recommending me to Bob? Because you'll get the client's or customer's perspective, not yours. The customers are the best people to understand your brand.
Yeah,
because they experience it more than you do. They are the brand experience, not you. It's never about you or the car. It's always about the driving experience people get as a result of owning that motor car.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, 100%.
And they're the best people to ask. And for big corporate clients, what I do is I help them craft surveys to their top clients. We get them into the room and have that conversation with them if they're really large strategic clients, or if they're smaller ones, you just find out, okay, what are the key metrics of this relationship? Like, is it cost? Is it quality? Is it timeliness? Is it relationship? Is it innovation? Whatever those things might be. And you're asking them two levels of question. You're asking them, how do you experience us now? And ideally, how would you like to experience us? Because you want to understand how to keep those clients or those customers loyal and build that loyalty and find more people just like them. Then when you're communicating to the marketplace, you can say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm offering. If this resonates with you, let's have a conversation. And you're rather than marketing to 1,000 people, you're marketing to maybe 10, of which 8 will become clients now and 2 will become clients next year. Can you see? I'm sure this has been your experience in tailoring. Well, I'm not a tailor, but I'm sure that's been my experience with Benny. I think about I think of the successful businesses that I work with. That's what they do. They just get better and better at that, and understanding and having the confidence that they're there, that the clients are there, and that they're looking for you as much as you're looking for them. I mean, if I'm looking for tailoring, I'm looking for a great tailor as much as he or she is looking for me. I'm looking for a great driving experience as much as BMW wants to sell a car to me. Just a matter of identifying who I am and communicating with me in a way that really reflects or embodies the relationship we're looking for.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Brilliant. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. You're preaching to the converted here. And it makes total sense. Even if I probably am not making as much sense as I normally do on this episode.
You're making a lot of sense, Roberto. You're making a lot of sense, Roberto.
You're picking up for me really, really well. But no, it makes total sense. But you mentioned COVID, and another conversation that I'm having a lot at the moment. The word collaboration is coming up. And you know in what context, right? Because and it's especially, clients are moaning about the younger generation. I'm really sorry to my younger listeners, but I know it's not all of you. In the same way that the older generation, we're not perfect either. But there's this push-pull effect at the moment going on. So London is very, very busy. We're open. To be honest, we never really cared that much about COVID anyway. You guys had it far worse than us. I mean, I had clients. I've got clients from Australia that, when they flew over to the UK, they were dreading going back because of all the quarantining and stuff. It was so strict for all of you. Sorry to make you relive it. But at the moment, there's this push-pull because London's busy again. International travel's opened up. People are ready to sort of do business and ignore what's going on in the news, because seriously, if you focus on that, folks, you will bury your head in the sand again. So just delete your news apps and ignore it all. But there's a section of the working population that doesn't want to physically come back to the workplace. And employers
Yeah.
now, more than any other time in the last 3 years, are saying for collaboration's sake, it's so important. They're realizing that the virtual collaboration still isn't able to trump doing it in person. And they're
No.
also
Yeah.
saying that the people that we do get back suddenly are realizing what they've missed. Do you think that we're in danger of losing that collaborative spirit, given what we've been through with the pandemic, realizing that I mean, you and I probably wouldn't have met if it wasn't for Zoom. I'm not sure how we
Yes,
would have,
exactly.
right? So,
Yeah.
but so
Yeah.
that's the paradox or contradiction that I'm finding, because in workplaces, collaboration seems to have taken a dip, and employers are really focused on trying to get it back. And the way that they see best to get it back after nearly 3 years of virtual is they want people back physically together, shoulder to shoulder, working together in
Mm.
rooms as teams. But then as a podcaster, most of what I do is done remotely.
Yeah.
But then for my day job, I have to be working shoulder to shoulder in the workroom. I can't not be there with my clients and with
Yeah.
my team. So I'm just now taking myself through this process. Is collaboration a state of mind and an attitude
Is it a
thing?
state? It's definitely an intention. I mean, there's a lot of gems in what you just shared, Roberto. That there are, in some ways, COVID has been good for people, a blessing, if you like, in terms of flexibility, not having to commute as often as they did. I know the London commutes can be a real challenge, particularly in the middle of winter. It gives them a lot more work-life balance if that's what they choose to do. So there have been some benefits, if you like, from the changing in working arrangements. And a lot of the employers that I work with are very flexible with people in terms of time in the office and so forth. You also mentioned this other thread about young people. What if I could just talk about that first? And I share your concern. And the reason I share your concern is that if you look at the recent Pew research coming out of the US, it's suggesting that we have never been more polarized than we are right now. Part of that is because of social media, and no matter what social media platform you consume, the algorithm in that social media platform will feed you up more of what you already believe. So it's entrenching views, if you like. Like
Yeah.
if I like fishing, I'm going to get more content on fishing. If I'm anti-fishing, I'll get a lot of content on how fishing is bad for the environment and the seas are being overfished. Whatever I think is going to get
Yeah.
reinforced. And the Pew guys have said, look, this is making us more polarized, which is very concerning. And 80% of the use of mobile phones now is with short-term videos, like a dopamine hit. And it's short-term dopamine hits of views I already have, which are making it less likely that we collaborate. And if we're working from home, even if we're Zooming or having virtual meetings, it's more challenging to collaborate virtually. It's easier to do it face to face because we know that there's a whole range of subconscious things that happen when you're in a person-to-person relationship, like when you're physically together.
Yeah.
And I love the way Carl Jung described this. He said that he talked about the unconscious and the conscious minds. He said the conscious mind is like a cork that bobs on the ocean of the subconscious. So most of that communicating is happening subconsciously, and that's happening on steroids when you're face to face. So ideally, it's face to face. If you've got a choice between doing it remotely, doing it face to face, do it face to face because you will demonstrably amplify the benefits in terms of the relationship. It's challenging. If you think of a romantic relationship or a friendship, it's almost impossible to have a romantic relationship remotely. Like that would be, I've never had one, but I'm sure it would be hard. And also a friendship. I mean, I've had friends that they move around the world and they're in different time zones and different nationalities. We can maintain the friendship, but it's much more challenging than it is face to face. We know this to be true. So if in doubt, get face to face. That's crucial, because that's what's going to help you build a relationship, whether it's with a group of people in a team or whether it's individually in the sort of business that you work in. So I would, because you've got a choice. Like at the end of the day, we've got ultimate choice between what's happening around us and how we respond to it in a whole range of areas. We've got health choices, lifestyle choices, relationship choices, parenting choices, tailoring choices. We've got lots of choice. And what I'd recommend is that in my particular, I guess, soapbox, is that if you've got a choice, choose to do something face-to-face. And when you're doing it face-to-face in a commercial relationship, choose a collaborative approach because it's good for you and it's good for them. Collaboration doesn't mean giving in. It doesn't mean being a nice guy and giving things away, which I often see with people I'm working with. They think, oh, well, this collaborative approach means I've got to be appeasing and nice to people and give away value and hope and trust they get value back in return. No, not at all. A collaborative relationship is built on where you both get, and the evidence is saying you both get better outcomes. It's better for you and better for them. And if you're working in a pro-social space, you get a pro-social outcome too.
Yeah. It's got to be win-win. So, I always say to people that I'm going to get into any kind of relationship with, whether it's transactional, because it's a business relationship, because they come to me for a service and for a price, and I give them that service, often beyond the call of duty, I'd like to say. Or, it's me employing someone to do some work in my house or whatever, but I enter every relationship in the spirit of collaboration, and the spirit of collaboration for me, in part, a big part of it, is that it has to be a win-win outcome for both parties. I don't do win-lose, and I do not do lose-lose.
Yes. Yeah, and there's a lot written about negotiating and getting to yes from the Harvard negotiating project. And the only thing I'd be mindful about is that you're not sure what a win-win is. Right? I'm not saying you, Roberto. I'm saying when you're involved in a collaborative relationship, the objective is that both parties are better off, but maybe not both are winning, because in my mind, winning means I get all of what I want and you get all of what you want.
Now, I see what you mean.
And we may not know what that is. Like, I'm going into a relationship or a collaborative relationship thinking, I'm not 100% sure what this outcome is going to be. We are co-creating the outcome. So I don't know what a win-win looks like yet, because I'm not 100% sure how it is I can help you, or how it is you can help me, or what sort of relationship we can build. And the other thing I'd ask your listeners to think about, particularly the younger ones, is to think about the long-term value of a relationship. And I'm sure you'll come across this in tailoring too. And this just struck me. It's huge. I mean, if you think of the relationship Benny had with my friend who recommended me, and he recommended other people there too, to Benny, that one relationship he built with that one client is probably giving him 10 more clients.
Yeah.
And if you think, one of the characteristics when you were younger is that your time frames are relatively short. You're thinking of next week, next month, next year. If you think of the lifetime value of a relationship, I've had commercial relationships with people for over 20 years that are clients that move from company to company, and that relationship is worth millions of dollars. I can think one in particular that's been literally worth millions of dollars to me over a 20-year period, because I built a great relationship with him initially.
Yeah.
and he moved to 4 different major corporations in different parts of the world, and he took me with him.
Yeah.
So think of, like, if you're 20 years old and you're in a business, think about 40 years of value from a relationship. Or if you're 40, think of 10 or 20 years of value, not just from that one particular person, but from who else they can influence. Because once you influence them, people live in tribes. Like, people looking for first class bespoke tailoring from someone like Roberto, they have friends that are looking for the same thing. So you're joining their tribe, and you're getting recommended in that tribe, like whether it's a sporting group or a social group or a business group. So think lifetime value, and think of who else they know, and who else they can influence, because they are the people that you're looking for, and they all know each other. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons it works so well. It's one of the reasons why I collect. So if you like, you can be selfishly collaborative. Like, I'm really selfish. I want the biggest possible outcomes for me I can possibly get. Therefore, I'm going to be collaborative, because I know if they get more of what they need from the relationship, and it's the right person, I'm going to get more too, not just now or next week or tomorrow, but in 10 or 20 years from now. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like a long-term view. Yeah.
One thing some of my guests love me doing is putting myself up as an example. So with your permission,
Sure.
I remember when I worked for this big American company, and they were very, very sales focused and KPIs and all that nonsense, right? And I was regarded as being a lone wolf, because I just did like you, doing the opposite of what you were told. I was pretty much the same. And I got into the office one day, and my boss was at my filing cabinet where all my client files were kept, and he's rifling through them. And he's writing a list, and then he sits down, and I said to him, "What the hell are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I've been going through your numbers recently, and we've got some new people who've joined, and so I'm going to give some of your low-level clients to the new people." I said to him, "No, you're not. You certainly don't get to decide what a low-level client is." And he said, "Well, let me give you an example. This guy here, Joe Bloggs, let's call him, he only buys like one suit every 18 months from you. He's not a big client." I said to him, "Yeah, I know in money terms he's not a big client in terms of what he himself spends with me, but all the big clients that I've got, he
He knows them.
recommended them. He
Yeah.
recommended them." And then I drew his name in the middle of a sheet of paper, a large sheet of paper, and then I drew a spider off from him to every client. He was my biggest referrer, Peter. He wasn't my biggest monetary customer, but he was my biggest referrer. And I spent a lot of time with him. And I treated him as well as I would anyone that was buying lots of clothing from me every year, because it was the value of that relationship. I'm only 25 at this point in time. This is 20 years ago. But I saw the value then of a long-term relationship. And that's why now, fast forward 20 years, and to hopefully give some proof to what Peter was explaining just now for you guys and girls. I remember my very, very first customer, the guy that gave me a chance, was Simon Glynn at 66 Wigmore Street. And he was not even a partner at the time. It was a tax firm, accountants, whatever. I remember what he bought or tried me out on. It was a black suit with silver stripes. We put a silver lining on the inside. I remember his measurements. I remember all of his measurements. And he's still with me today. And I can name dozens of people that I met in my first 3 to 6 months that are still with me today. And some of them spend a lot of money and some of them don't. But the value of those relationships over the last 2 decades, I mean, I start getting emotional thinking about it.
Yeah, and it's smart business, and it's I had a similar situation only a couple of weeks ago. In fact, it was about a week before Christmas. I was referred to a client, and I met with her, and we talked about doing business together. And she said, "Look," and we had an honest conversation afterwards. I said, "Look, I'm not sure that what I'm recommending is going to work for you." And she said, "No, I'm not sure it will, but I know someone that you'd be perfect for." And she connected us. Now, if I tried the hard sell on her, it just would have pushed her further away. But she connected me to another network of people through her friends that will be highly profitable for me. It definitely works, and the longer you do it, the better it works. It's like in collaboration, slow is fast. Like the slower you do it, and the better the higher quality the relationship is, then the faster things start happening. And then when you do it for long enough, all of those slow builds become fast sales or become faster commercially. And it happens, and for me, it's happened in 12 different countries, in different parts of the world, because not only do people know people like that in, say, London, but they'll know them in Cairo, or they'll know them in Tokyo, or they'll know them in Shanghai. That if it's a well-connected person and a great client, they know people all over the world. Or they will have golf buddies, or have friends that are doing similar things. It works, and I've seen it work in practice too. Like even if you're I was working with a large consulting firm in the US, and just getting back to your thought about prescriptive selling, and what they did was they studied very closely what it was the best salespeople had in common, and this was several thousand of these consultants in the US, and the only thing they had in common was what they called FaceTime, which was face-to-face time with clients. That was the clear marker by a long shot. FaceTime was number one.
Wow!
So it's like the amount of time you spent face-to-face with clients was the strongest marker for sales success, over and above anything else. Everything else came like a long way down the list. It wasn't personality, it wasn't style, it wasn't connections. It was FaceTime. So, and in that FaceTime, what you're doing is building relationship. Then you think, well, how does it work? But it works if you're running if the CEO of a big business, you will know that a collaborative culture works best, internally and externally. And the other surprising thing you might be pleased to know is that your clients and customers feel your culture. Quite often, what we do is we'll measure an internal culture, and then we'll measure a customer's experience. And I'll say to the client, which would you like to see first? Do you want to see the client's experience, which is going to predict the culture, or the culture, which predicts the client experience? Because they reflect each other. Each other. If you're running a team, like you're running a team of people like you are in your tailoring business, a well-formed, diverse team makes a smarter decision than its smartest member. And you can prove this in workshops. I've run this simulation literally thousands of times, where we'll take a group, we'll say, here's the problem you're facing, and give it to them individually, and see what the smartest or best outcome is as an individual. Then we get them together and get them all to contribute and collaborate, and that team will make a smarter decision than its smartest member. Now, if you're looking at, say, an Olympic 100-meter race, the average of those times is not the fastest. But if you're looking at decision making, the collaborative result of that team is smarter than its smartest member. If you're looking at one-on-one relationships, a one-on-one collaborative relationship will have better, more effective outcomes than a one-on-one sales relationship, or any other characteristic of a relationship you'd like to think about. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. So you can think individually, if I'm selling or transacting individually, or I'm running a team, or I'm running an organization, you can just think, well, ask yourself the question, what is the collaborative approach here? And how can I go about executing that in my business? And all the good evidence says, like from both commercial evidence and hardcore academic science, it says a collaborative approach will give you both better outcomes and build a relationship, which then becomes a vehicle for better outcomes in the future. I mean, it beats Bitcoin. I mean, it's like the Bitcoin of business, if you like. Invest in collaborative relationships. You'll get the returns again and again and again and again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Roberto?
Yeah, it does.
It resonates with you, doesn't it? Because whenever I talk to smart people that are successful, they say, yeah, I get that. That's been my experience too. Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
Not because I'm such a genius, but because I've been doing this for so long. I know it is. I meet people. I know that success is built on collaborative relationship. The question then becomes, well, how do I go about doing that? Like, how do I do more of that? Or how do I become more conscious and more deliberate about doing it, becoming more aware of what I'm doing well? Like if I'm a 100-meter sprinter, I become more aware of what I'm doing. I mean, I'm an ocean swimmer. I like jumping in the ocean most mornings and swimming a couple of kilometres with my friends. Now, I know that there's techniques involved in swimming which will make me a faster swimmer. And when I get slower, I become more aware of those techniques and I swim faster. It's true of anything: running, swimming, collaborating, any business enterprise that you're in. Become more consciously aware of what works, and you'll go faster. I mean, I love. There's a great Netflix show. I'm not sure if you've seen it. It's called Drive to Survive. It's all about Formula One. It's all about. I'm not into Formula One, but it's really interesting microcosm of the world. And they asked one of the owners of the teams. He was I think he owned either McLaren or Mercedes. They didn't own it. He ran it. He was the CEO of this team. And he said, how do you run a team like this? You've got mechanics and drivers and engineers, and there's like lots of people, hundreds of millions of dollars involved. You're traveling around the world. How do you make decisions? He said, well, I just asked myself one simple question. I asked them one simple question. If you want to talk to me, how does it make the car go faster? And I'd be asked, I love that phrase. How does it make the car go faster? So if you've got a business, you think, how do I make my car go faster? Not dangerously fast, but faster. You think, well, all the good evidence suggests that collaboration is going to make my car go faster, my personal car go faster, and my business car go faster, and even my romantic relationships go faster. Like there's a great guy in the UK, not the UK, the US, called John Gottman from Washington State University. He runs what he calls the Love Lab, and he gets couples to come in and talk to each other on a couch. And all he does is listen to them talking to each other, and he videos them with his team, and he content analyzes the conversation, and he can predict whether that relationship will survive or not, just based on the quality of their conversation. Just the quality of the conversation. And his theory is the quality of the conversation is the quality of the relationship. I get that's one more example of how collaboration works. And when you're in a great relationship with somebody, you're both getting what you want and you love the experience of giving it to each other and sharing that together. And ideally, you share that long term together and it gets bigger and deeper and broader. Yeah. I mean, it's a way of life, Roberto. And I sound evangelistic because I am, because this is the secret sauce.
Yeah.
And but you know that to be true.
Yeah, totally. But you know what you said there, loving the experience is so key. Because then if I think
exactly,
you know, this is the first time actually that I've had to really consciously think about what I do, because the way I build relationships and so on, you know, to me just happens instinctively. So it's the first time I've had to really sort of I've kind of been inspired to sort of analyze what I'm doing, but loving the experience of helping people, being together, knowing through their feedback that they love, you know, what I'm doing with them, etc. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing.
Yeah, and you love that. I mean, you're in the relationship business. We're all in the relationship business, and we are. If you're a nutcase like me, you like reading about this. I've gone back through evolutionary biology. I just finished reading a book on the history of the brain, and one of the chapters was talking about our brain evolved when we were Homo sapiens with this whole prefrontal cortex, which was about. And the reason it developed was so we could talk to each other. We could use words and communicate and build relationship and collaborate in tribes and beat all the other like Neanderthals and other type of apes that were around then, and we evolved. This is the essence of the evolutionary spirit. We are hardwired to do good and feel well. And you look at positive psychology, even the number one marker of happiness, self-reported happiness, is depth and quality of relationships. So if you want to be happy, build great relationships, not just great romantic relationships, great friendships, great personal relationships based on you both achieving things together and enjoying the process. You will feel good because it's part of your DNA, Roberto. It's in your DNA. This is how to feel good. So it will make you happier too. You will feel happier when you do that. You'll feel more genuine. You'll feel like you're making a better contribution. You feel like you've lived a day and you've left someone's life better off as a result of this conversation or this relationship, and your business will build as an outcome. That's not the goal. That's the goal is to build the relationship. The outcome is to build the revenue, but the relationship always comes first. Otherwise, you're in a sales situation, it becomes toxic and you're pushing them further away.
I'm grinning from ear to ear as much as I can.
What's that?
Like really trying to exercise my muscles up at this time of day. But at least inside, I'm grinning from ear to ear, because what you were saying just there, I was thinking at the end of 2021, I made a decision. Self-proclaimed introvert, don't like big spaces, don't like going to networking things and meeting other people because I'm not the sort of person to go and whatever. Made a decision end of 2021. I want better relationships. I want to say yes to opportunities. So I'm, when these opportunities come my way, I'm just going to accept them, and I'll deal with the consequences afterwards. Fast forward to now, 2022 was my best year of my career. Revenue wise, it was my best year of my career. I broke so many records last year coming out of so that was kind of a shock in itself. But people say to me, so what happened? Did you just find more people? Did you change your marketing and so on? And I said, no, the number one reason why I had my best year ever is because I focused on relationships last year.
There you go.
God's honest truth.
There you go. Yeah, and I believe you. And I've met many successful entrepreneurs in 12 different countries, and the most successful say the same thing. And you know it when you meet them. You can feel it coming off them.
Yeah,
you can feel that genuine relationship building approach. It's part of how they do business. And what I'd suggest is become even more conscious, become more aware of what you're doing well, and think, okay, this is what happens. This is what happens when I think this way, when I act this way, and this is what happens when I don't. Because we all have sides that don't want to talk to people, want to be introverted. I have those. I still have those feelings now, like where I want to just get into a book or watch a Netflix show, or just get immersed in TikTok and just not communicate, not connect. And you do need like recharging time, obviously, but you'll find most of the best things in life will come to you from a collaborative relationship in your, and if you have that intent, you'll encourage that intent to come out in others, because we all have that intent too. It's all part of our DNA. Even the most introverted people still benefit from high quality relationships. They have less of them. Extroverts tend to have more relationships, but they're not quite as deep. Introverts tend to have less, but they're deeper. So whatever part of the spectrum you may find yourself on, your life will be better, like not just financially, but you will feel better too, in terms of the quality relationships and the sort of outcomes you get. I'm sure you have it with people. I do too, when you've been part of them turning their business around, or turning their self-esteem around, or helping them realize goals they've had for a long time. It's a wonderful journey to be part of, quite apart from the bank balance improving, which is also great. But it's also just fulfilling. Thinking, I'm a good guy. I've been in Australia, we call it mateship. It's like being a good mate. Being a good mate is developing mateship with people. Yeah.
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 I think I like that, developing mateship, which I kind of feel I've done with you today. So I wish that I could just teleport myself to Sydney. You'll get scared now and just hang out
No,
with
no, you
you.
can teleport yourself here, and I can take you for a swim, Roberto. I can
Yeah,
take
I'd
you,
love
get you
that.
up in the morning at 6 o'clock, and we can jump in the ocean together. Your
Awesome.
life will never be the same, Roberto.
Yeah, I bet.
You
It's not going to
jump
be
in
the
the
same
ocean
after
because
this.
but you get the exercise, you get the nature because ideally it's just after dawn and the sun's like a golden
Yeah.
ready ball over the ocean, and you have coffee with your friends afterwards.
What
It's the
about
perfect way to start the day.
what
Yeah.
about
What about what?
sharks?
Sharks.
I love
I mean,
hey,
sharks.
I love sharks. I'm morbidly fascinated by them. Like I'm
Yeah,
obsessed with so
and
my wife finds it really funny because even the first time we went away together, and at the time I couldn't actually swim. I taught myself to swim. My wife is from Spain, Mediterranean, all of that. And we were
yeah.
going to the Mediterranean and we were going to Malta and she said it's a close sea. Don't worry, there's nothing in there that can, potentially bite you or kill you or whatever. And
Yeah.
and I managed to find a copy of a treaty signed by the Maltese government for the protection of
Wow.
the great white shark in the Mediterranean, because
Wow.
apparently they find their way in and they sort of birth their pups somewhere around there. I don't know if they
Okay.
still do. I
Okay.
don't know if they've moved on or whatever, but there is a treaty in place for the protection of, and I was like, you just
Yeah.
can't get away with from them. I don't have that fear now. I will jump in the water. It's fine. I'm very respectful, but I just kind of wonder what it's like around where you are.
There are sharks in the ocean. Uh, we are
Never a
there are
truer
sharks. I mean,
statement.
there are sharks. So I can't say there's no sharks. There are sharks in the ocean. I have seen sharks when I'm surfing or riding my ski or swimming. I've seen them in the water. It does give you a little bit of a shudder, like you see that dorsal fin of a shark, and you think that's not a dolphin, that's a shark. It's extremely rare for someone to be attacked by a shark. Uh, when you think about the number of people that are in the ocean and that surf in Australia, and the rarity of a shark attack, that they normally happen at certain times of the day in certain situations. So it's extremely rare to be taken by a shark. What you should be more concerned about than sharks is jellyfish, because
Yeah.
we've also got the deadliest jellyfish in the world. In northern Queensland, there's two jellyfish that can kill you. There are
You've
irukandji
got
and
I think you've got the highest, like out of the top 10 animals in the world that can kill you. I think Australia's got like 70% of them.
yeah, we've got a lot. We've got the most
You've
venomous
got the
snakes, the most
spider.
venomous jellyfish. We've got the two most venomous spiders in the
Yeah,
world. We've got two of the most venomous jellyfish in the world. We've got a couple of the top 10 most venomous snakes in the world.
yeah.
Plus, you add sharks to the mix. But it's surprising that we're still alive. I mean, there's nutcases like me that jump in the ocean most mornings, and we don't die. I've been doing it most of my life, and I haven't died yet. So it's extremely unlikely. It's I mean, if you're swimming in waters in northern Queensland where these jellyfish are, you know where they are. The areas are cordoned off. It's I mean, all the councils and state governments have a duty of care to protect the people going to the ocean. So you're overwhelmingly safe. You're overwhelmingly safe. Plus, the benefit of being in the ocean and being in nature is just priceless.
Yeah,
There's nothing
totally.
quite like it. And there's something about being in nature, particularly early in the morning, that just gives you a charge. It's hard to get from doing anything else. I mean, my wife might be like my wife is anti-ocean. For her, going into a swim is like walking in waist deep in the water when it's bakingly hot. She doesn't like getting it. So she's not that person, not that person at all. So I understand that way of life, which is nice in a way because she's got her things, I got my things, and we meet somewhere in the middle. That's
No,
cool.
I'm
Uh,
a beach bunny. Like at the moment, the big thing over here is everybody's off on skiing holidays. I'm not interested. Like, that's the one thing my clients can't get into a conversation with me about. So, oh, do you ski? And I'm
Skiing.
like, no, I don't. I've
No.
tried it once. Nah, give me a beach and the
Yeah.
ocean, and I'm happy.
Yeah, and some people love skiing. I'm a surfer, so I like snowboarding when I go to the snow. Rather, I find skis hard. I like standing sideways rather
Yeah,
than going straight down the hill. But people are different things, and that's okay. I don't need to
yeah,
convert you into surfing or skiing or whatever. What I suggest is get your passion and do it, whatever the passion is. I mean, I've got an old school friend of mine who is a philatelist. He loves stamps, right? And he was an extremely introverted kid. Like he was slightly overweight then. He was quite pasty. He didn't get any exercise. And all he did each day at school was bring his stamp collection in and move stamps around these little cellophane sort of windows he had in his stamp book.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
thinking, where the hell is he going to end up? I mean, he's so like into his stamps. But then when he was about 16 or 17, he met a girl from a neighboring school who, guess what, was absolutely gorgeous, extremely introverted, and loved stamps. Right. And they used to meet and just share their stamp albums with each other and
Oh,
show each other their stamp collections, right? And I'm thinking, we're all the rest of us guys were jealous because she was very beautiful, this girl, and Chris was his name. Chris developed this with no evil intent at all. He was such a sweetheart guy. Developed this great relationship with over stamps and moving stamps around the stamp album. That developed into a romance, and they've been happily married since they were 20, 21 years old. 5 kids later.
oh,
It's because they're into stamps.
yeah,
Which is such like old-fashioned postage stamps, sort of in an album, like in
yeah,
a,
yeah,
a
yeah.
stamp album. I thought
Oh,
this is crazy. And he used to like get stamps from around the world and rearrange them alphabetically or geographically or by country and what the history of that stamp was and who that particular queen or king was. And I'm thinking, really, stamps? But that was his thing.
yeah.
And he found the love of his life through stamps. As he
You,
calls it, I'm not into stamps. I'm a philatelist. I love that word. I'm a philatelist. Let's try saying that sober. I'm a,
I'm a
I
philosopher.
love my.
I've enough.
Well, there could be some. There could be some philatelists listening. If you are, Chris is his name, but he found love of his life through being a stamp collector.
Yeah, oh, that's it. Well, you
Crazy,
never
crazy
know.
stuff.
I found love of my life on a drunken night out in the West End, saw her through the window, said to my friend, that's the one I'm going to marry. There we go.
Oh wow.
16 years later.
Yeah, and don't you? You know, Roberta, when you meet them. I mean, I met my wife through a mutual friend of ours who knew her and knew me, obviously, and got us together. And I knew as soon as, before she even said anything, as soon as I looked, I just felt like I'm going to love this woman. I just felt like it. You get that in your DNA. And it's been true ever since. That's what happens. When it happens, you know it happens. It's like people ask me, "Oh, how do you know when you're in love?" Well, if you don't know, you're not in love. If you don't know, you're not in love. If you don't know, how does she make you feel? I'm not sure. I'm not sure she's not the one, or he's not the one, because you feel it coming off them. You feel like I love this
Yeah,
woman.
yeah.
I think I adore her. And the better you get to know her, the more you love her. I think, yeah, she's the one. She's the one. Yeah.
I really
For sure.
hope. I really hope
Now we're on the
that.
romance, Roberto.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take romance tips from me. I'm not a romance or relationship expert. Just ask my wife by a long shot. But I knew when it was I met someone I was going to fall in love with.
Yeah. Oh, I really hope people are watching this as well. But even if they're not, if they're just listening, I'm sure on some level they've fallen for you because you're absolutely amazing. Really. Thank you so, so much. And
Thank you so much, Roberto.
like if you're really interested in the concepts that Peter and I've been talking about today, mostly Peter, obviously, because he's the expert, you can buy your book, Peter, on Amazon and other places you buy books.
Yes, yeah. Anywhere you find books, it's
I mean,
called
that's where I'm
Collabradabra.
right this second.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it on my phone. You probably recognize your book cover there.
Oh, yes, I do. Collabradabra. There it is.
Collabradabra
Yeah.
by Peter J. Anthony. The magic of collaborative conversations. You could be one conversation away from anything you want. You can buy. I will put the link in the show notes, and
Thank you.
I've got my copy arriving tomorrow. It says. There we go.
Oh, cool.
You got one more sale. But that's not why Peter came on this podcast. That is not why he came on. But I've been really inspired by you, and you've had a massive impact on my thinking, and I want to learn more about this concept. I'm really, really intrigued, and I hope everybody else is as well. So thank you, Peter. Have you had fun?
I have. When I saw your podcast, Roberto, I loved it. I thought, wow, this is tailoring talk. I love this idea. And I thought I'm really keen to meet you, and I have, and I've really enjoyed this. As you can probably tell, I turn up how I feel. I've loved the conversation, and ideally, there's been some value in our conversation for the listeners.
Yeah, no, 100%, and I hope that we can do it again, and I hope that we get to meet in person when I get to your side of the planet, which is on my bucket list.
Well, it's on my bucket list. Not even a bucket list. I'll be back in the UK in June, July, working again, and I'm gonna get a suit from you, because I haven't had a new suit for the last 2 or 3 years, maybe a bit longer. So I'd like to experience Roberto's tailoring. So
I'd love to take care of you.
I'll be a client. I'll be a customer of yours.
Oh, thank you. I'll be delighted, and we can hang out. I'll be here. Funny enough. We'll probably be in the midst of our last year's wedding season was ridiculous. The busiest of my entire career. I've never seen anything like it. The mills were just running out of fabric. You know, what normally took us 5-6 weeks was taking months. It was pandemonium, and I think we're going to have the same again this year. Thank you, COVID.
Wow. Well, hopefully you can squeeze me in, Roberto.
Listen, I'll make time for you. Anyone listening to this as my client, if you've got appointments around June, July, they're going to be tentative, because as soon as this Aussie hits UK shores, I'm dropping everything for him. Thank you, Peter.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Roberto.
Thank you all so much for joining Peter and I on this episode. Don't forget, we're on Instagram and now on YouTube. Just search Roberto Revilla. You'll find me, all Tailoring Talk. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review. Click the share button in your player to send this episode to someone you know who might get some help or be inspired by Peter today. Very important. And if you're enjoying the show and you want to support me, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Roberto Revilla. Have a great week. Be good to each other. Don't forget to check out Peter's book, and I'll see you on the next one.